Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni. Good morning, Emmanuel. Good to see you again this morning.
Good morning, Tundu. We'll start with these day newspapers. Most of Nigerian newspapers reporting the verdict from the Supreme Court on the presidential election. This day, in swift judgment, Supreme Court dismisses Atiku's appeal. If we look at the Punch newspaper reporting the same story, Atiku loses, APC mocks PDP, opposition attacks judiciary. Supreme Court, in 3 sentences, throws out Atiku's appeal. Stop destructive agenda. APC tells PDP, judiciary sabotaged by dictatorial cabal, XVP. And of course, the Daily Sun, Atiku, it is finished. Supreme Court dismisses PDP presidential candidate's appeal for lack of merit, affirms Buhari's victory. While the Daily Trust puts it this way, Supreme Court verdicts, cabal sabotage judiciary, Atiku. Nigeria must move on. Buhari, yes, the president reacted from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia yesterday to the verdict as expected. And of course, he welcomed the verdict and he commended Atiku for opting to pursue the legal option in challenging the result of that election. And Atiku's own reaction that, well, he will continue to fight for the Nigerian people. So for those papers saying it is finished, it is the end, as if it is the end of Atiku, no. The presidential election of 2019 has come to its final bus stop.
With regard to presidential election?
Yes. Yeah. So perhaps what I was expecting, because the standard of openness set by the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal in delivering the full judgment aired before how many million Nigerians? 200 million Nigerians, and we all followed. I was expecting similar performance from the Supreme Court, but in that brief 3 sentences, as one paper puts it, dismissing the appeal, I thought, well, the Supreme Court could have done better for everybody to know the basis of dismissing the appeal. It is not enough to just say it lacks merit. Every case that fails, every appeal that fails at the Supreme Court is certainly because such cases don't have merit.
Well, let's contextualize it. I recall that when the Court of Appeal ruled initially in the matter, we had expressed concern that the Court of Appeal had everybody glued to their seats for more than 8 hours, reading a very lengthy judgment. And there were criticisms at the time that couldn't the Court of Appeal have just decided and then give reasons later, which is, a procedure, an approach that the Court of Law can adopt. But in the case of the Supreme Court, which is the final, considering the weight of expectations, and the importance of the matter, it's understandable that both the lawyers and the public would like to listen to the reasons, even if it took 2-3 days. We will have waited. We will have wanted to know. But we must also realize that, the Court of Law is, the law is also a social modulator. The Supreme Court justices, the panel said they had looked at the briefs and the exhibits for 2 weeks. So they had done their work, and then they had come to the conclusion that this issue lacks merit. Maybe in their own wisdom, if they had read the judgment, there could have been tension.
Raise the temperature.
Within the polity. People expecting how the thing will end, and you never know how that will play out. And part of the responsibility of the judges is to help modulate, social temperature. That may not be strictly law, but it's part of, the responsibility of the courts. I'm sure by the time they now come out with the reasons, the ruling has settled down in everybody's mind. You are not likely to react as emotionally as you would have if you've been taken through, the entire, both the ruling itself and whatever, both the ratio and whatever obita issues that they want to raise. I'm just trying to rationalize what they have done.
Yes, well,
that makes sense.
Yes, your rationalization of the way it has gone, well, it makes sense. But there are people calling for greater openness.
Yeah.
Yes, and
you still have the full judgment, but you are likely to look at it, to read it, take it in, so they've modulated your response, And that's part of the functions of the court, to help stabilize the polity.
Okay, we'll give it to them.
I may be wrong, but that's what I think.
But really, that's exactly why we have never had a successful contender or trying to throw out the results of any election, because the court is loath to throw, the country into disarray. So this is not really a surprise, is it?
Well, we must also commend Atiku for sticking strictly to the judicial option.
Yes.
But you see, in some other parts of the world, most recently it's Bolivia, we've seen where, things go the other way. And then the person who loses at the end of the day comes out to congratulate the winner.
Oh, no, that's Argentina.
Is it Argentina? Argentina, Evo Morales, right?
Yeah.
No, Evo Morales.
No, Krishna.
Yes.
Krishna and Fernandez.
Yeah, exactly.
In
so they
Argentina.
There's total peace there, acceptance, congratulations. Bolivia, they're having a problem.
But you see here, the statement by former Vice President Atiku Abubakar is dripping with venom, bitterness, which means that, yes, the law may have taken its course, but in terms of the polity, in terms of the relationship among the gladiators, there's still a lot of bitterness. It may not play out now. Everybody may just keep quiet and move on, but who knows what will happen in 2023.
No, but we commend him because he went strictly judicial, unlike President Muhammadu Buhari when he lost. While seeking judicial intervention, he was also inciting his followers.
Oh, the dog and the baboon.
Yes, we must not forget that. So we should commend Atiku. He never did that. He was calm. We're even saying, why is he not in the country? Because if he was around, perhaps, you don't know what will transpire.
Let's just say that it's important for politicians at all times, either during the electoral process or during litigation post-election, that they do not resort to self-help.
Yes. Yeah. So Atiku is a man of peace through and through. Let's move on to other newspapers, perhaps other stories, as it were. If we move over to the Daily Trust newspaper, above the masthead, there's a story there. Border closure. Nigeria rejects Vietnam's rice importation plea. Yes, at a trade talk yesterday in Abuja, the Vietnamese delegation were asking and begging Nigeria for permission to export rice to Nigeria. Apparently, they too are feeling the heat, which also tells you that perhaps what Emefiele, Governor Emefiele, the central bank governor, has been saying all this while about our rice farmers benefiting, this is an indication. But what the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Sunday Akpan, told the delegation, quite instructive. Yes, if you want to give us rice to eat, come and invest here. We have arable land. You can be involved in the processing of rice. And I think that is the whole essence of this border closure as it affects our rice production, that we should do everything to encourage our farmers, protect our farmers from this dumping of rice from the Asian countries, which has been happening through our neighbors, where a lot of these people import this rice into with a view to smuggling the consignment into Nigeria. So that is an indication that 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 policy, at least protecting the policy of protecting our rice farmers, not perpetual closure of the border I'm talking about.
No, I think the point about telling the Vietnamese, that if they want Nigerians to eat rice, we have land here. They can come and invest and produce the rice here. That would create job opportunities. Mm-hmm. It will involve also transfer of skills. And there are quite a number of companies already, investing in the agri sector and in rice production. Olam, one company called Olam is a leading company producing paddy rice.
Yes.
And they've been able to succeed at it. And the people who work there are, Nigerians. So rather than imagine Nigeria as a dumping ground for rice from Vietnam, the Vietnamese can come here and plant the rice here, harvest it here, create jobs, and that's better for Nigeria.
Yes.
Because the whole argument is that we shouldn't be a source of, dumping of goods and services from other parts of the world. No, should we just be a primary provider of raw materials for Europe and Asia? The activity should be here so that we can get maximum benefit. And in any case, I must say that the Vietnamese delegation, they are so audacious to come and tell us that we want to import rice to your country. Can you just, export rice to your country? Can you just allow us? That's quite...
They've been doing it through the back door.
That's very strange diplomacy.
Well, let's move on to the Vanguard newspaper. Of course, the lead story, presidential poll, tussle ends as Supreme Court dismisses Atiku's petition. But above the masthead, Ambode's probe, court orders Lagos Assembly Speaker to maintain status quo. Now, the back and forth between Akinwumi Ambode and the Lagos State House of Assembly. The courts have intervened, and for now, everybody should maintain the status quo, as it were.
Status quo antebellum, as it is called. Well, Emmanuel Efeni, we'll take a short break, and then we'll come back and continue with the review of the headlines. You are still watching The Morning Show here on the Arise News channel. We'll be right back, and we'll continue with the newspaper headlines. Welcome back to The Morning Show here on the Arise News channel. Still with us in the studio is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni, who has been reviewing newspaper headlines from around the world. Efeni.
Yes, Ruben, we're talking about the Lagos State, former Lagos State Governor Ambode, as reported in the Vanguard newspaper, who has gone to court to stop the investigation being carried out by the Lagos State Assembly concerning the purchase of those nice buses Lagosians are enjoying, if I may add, right now.
You are taking a position on the matter.
No, the Lagosians are enjoying those buses. But for those new buses, the old BRT buses were already going the way of the Molues, the old rickety yellow buses. These new buses, so that Nigerians or Lagosians should know that these buses you are enjoying is the bone of contention at the Lagos State House of Assembly. And they were saying that the former governor did not get approval before spending the money to buy those buses. Now the governor has gone to court, the former governor, to challenge that investigation because they had already taken a position before even inviting him, criticizing him, vilifying him. And of course, what he has taken to the court is that there was indeed an approval in the 2018 budget. But there was a clause that was added that before you spend that money approved in the budget, you must also come and seek permission. So, well, the matter is in court.
Well, two quick comments. The first comment is that, look, the Lagos State legislature, why they have a responsibility to do oversight, both when you are in office or after you leave office. They also, in the case of Akinwumi Ambode, the former governor of Lagos State, must be mindful of communication, their public communication process and perception management, so that they do not further promote the impression that Ambode, who was denied a second term in office, is being witch-hunted or persecuted after leaving office. So far, I do not think that they are managing, those two aspects well enough. The second point is that, the governor who succeeded Ambode, that's Babajide Sanwo-Olu, he must also be careful not to be seen to be involved in what may look like, the persecution or the witch hunt of his predecessor. More so as there is a growing concern, within the Lagos community that in terms of pace, in terms of rhythm, the government is here to get off the ground. I don't know whether, you share that view, but that's part of what I hear. The government has to ratchet up momentum and just focus strictly on the assignment that the governor has been given. But for now,
that is
many people
perception
do not see that momentum.
Yes.
So you should resist the temptation, to be bogged down by all these, atmospherics. Because you see, one thing I also always tell people is that when you get into government, it's very easy to get carried away with the glamour and to pay more attention to ceremony rather than actual work. There's never a shortage of events to attend, parties to attend, photos to be taken, all kinds of minute things that, staff will be bringing. But the core work that needs to be done, we ought to see the people who have been elected sitting down and doing that work, rather than looking back at the past, whereas the people are looking at the future and the present. Those are my two concerns.
Very good comment, because we're already enjoying the bosses. And they are quarreling over the bosses.
Well, I don't know the details, so I cannot follow you in that direction.
Anyway, the case is in court. Court will take it from there. Let's move on. The Guardian newspaper, yes, the same lead story. You are sabotaged by dictatorial cabal. That's ex-VP warns Nigerian against self-destruction. But above the masthead, of course, talking about Lagos, Lagos ex-governor Mobalaji Johnson dies at the age of 83. Yes, Ruben, you rightly refer to him as one of the founding fathers of modern Lagos, or the makers of modern Lagos. Mm-hmm. Now, yes, but when you were talking about I thought you were going to miss mentioning that he attended Horsey College, the famous. I thought you were going, because I would have taken it personal. That's my alma mater. The famous Horsey College, Warri. Yes, he was our old student. In 2016, yes, we gave him an award as one of the distinguished old students of Horsey College, Warri, ahead of our 70th anniversary in 2017.
If I may add a footnote to what I said earlier, for the benefit of those who may think that the tribute was too saccharine, was too glowing. His tenure from 1967 to 75 as military governor of Lagos State was not without controversy. In fact, there was the issue of, I remember now, the Ajele Cemetery, as it is called. This was a cemetery that was somewhere in central Lagos, where you had the graves of Samuel Ajayi Crowther, Thomas Babington Macaulay, and a number of historical figures. And he demolished that cemetery, exhumed as the owners of the various tombstones to exhume, the bodies. And the place today, if you get there, is part of central Lagos, is built up and all that. And at that time, it was criticized, both by historians, specifically D.Y. Pio, a leading historian on Nigerian affairs, and also by Professor Wole Soyinka, that what he did was simply to erase, a significant aspect of Lagos state history. And then there was also the controversy over rent edict. It was not what is called Ambode that first had issues with rent edict. He had an issue with rent edict, which was opposed, by Lagos residents. And at the time, Ayinla Omowura, an Akpala musician, even waxed a special number on how Mobalaji Johnson was causing a controversy in Lagos State over the rent edict. So, it wasn't as if it was all, smooth sailing. But of course, in terms of the example, in terms of his achievements, in terms of the infrastructure he put in place, in terms of his integrity, and in terms of how he conducted himself and continued to contribute to society after leaving office, you can paint him in, absolutely glowing colors. And he's one former military governor that people don't feel negative about. He was a soldier, but he was able to connect with society. He had a common touch, that many military governors of his generation did not have.
Okay, not to forget to mention that we're talking about the grandfather of our own, Leila Johnson Salami.
Well, our condolences also to her and other members of the family.
Yes. Yeah. I think we just move over to the foreign newspapers. Yes, The Guardian, UK. Corbyn, the Tories don't represent the people. We do. That's Jeremy Corbyn making his own stake, staking a claim, as it were, ahead of the general election slated for December 12th. But if we look at the Daily Mail polls, Boris more trusted than Corbyn on NHS. That's according to a poll conducted for the Daily Mail. 38% of those polled, they trust Boris Johnson more because the issue of the NHS was part of the Prime Minister's question and answer yesterday. And Corbyn was saying that he is likely to sell Boris Johnson is likely to sell the NHS, given that there are already discussions with some secret discussion, as he put it, with some American companies. But that is not all, because in another blow to Labour, the Labour leader, nearly 1 in 6 supporters of his party are terrified of the thought of him becoming Prime Minister. So then 1 in 10 would rather he stood down as the Labour candidate.
I'm surprised it's only 1 in 10, quite frankly.
So, well, I think yesterday was an interesting day in the United Kingdom. In the House of Commons, it was Prime Minister Boris Johnson's last Prime Minister's question time before the election. And it was also more or less, by today, John Berco's last time as a Speaker of the House of Commons. And it was good to see Boris Johnson paying tribute to John Berco.
John Berco!
Order! He's been there for 10 years, and he had promised on September 8th that, if an early election is called, he will not stay a day longer. Now, I don't know why he has chosen that. The MP from Buckingham, ordinarily he was supposed to run again unopposed, which is the convention, but the Conservatives had said that they were opposing. But he took the personal decision that he doesn't want to go through that stress and that he will move on. He probably will end up in the House of Lords.
If they don't block him.
Which is the tradition.
No, but there are plans to also block him from getting to the House of Lords.
But maybe he will end up in the House of Lords. But as someone who has been in the House of Commons for such a long time, and at 56, I think he's had a good run as a Speaker and as a parliamentarian. However, in terms of his record, he's accused of, having been a divisive figure, particularly with regard to Brexit. But in terms of productivity, he alone handled over 14,000 motions during his 10-year period as Speaker of the House of Commons. The second major development, of course, was a confrontation between Corbyn and, our Prime Minister Boris Johnson yesterday, and you could see the argument over change. The Labour Party is talking about change and talking about defending the interest of workers and saying that on NHS and other issues, the Conservatives are the party of the rich who do not want the best for the people. But in any case, what is clear is that within 24 hours of choosing an election date, it is very clear where each party stands,
yes,
which is what we don't get in Nigeria, or where each political figure, stands.
So
I mean, the SNP, yes, there's clear thing about ideology. And as at yesterday evening, the campaign had started also online. You know, political advertisement is already there, the engagement of the people. And I looked at it and I said, yes, these UK politicians, they may be divisive, they may be confused, but at least they are clear-headed about where they stand. You know, and that's the kind of thing we would like to see in Nigeria. Parliament will adjourn, sine die. Every seat will become vacant on Wednesday. Yes. And then we wait with what happens November 26, when registration will close, and December 12, when the election will happen.
Thank you, Mr. Efeni.